Final piece of the society news. It's a bit longer, but this is going to cover out of the darkness into the light, and more church abuse of children is now coming to the light, and this is the story of a young black boy being abused. Charles Richardson, who gradually lost his eyesight to complications from diabetes and certain childhood memories that haunted him even more. And the Catholic priests appeared vividly in Charles's mind's eye. The priest was the one who promised him a spot on a travel basketball team, took him out for burgers and helped him with homework. But the one Richardson alleges, who also sexually assaulted him for more than a year. And Richardson said, "I've been seeing him in my mind's eye a lot recently." But as a black middle schooler in Baltimore in the 1970s, Richardson started spending time with the Reverend Henry Zerhusen, a charismatic white cleric, it said. But is it white? Because Zerhusen's nationality was not revealed, but I suspect he was Jewish given the name and the other priests of similar Jewish names reported as working at the same church and abusing the children. The names Belshner, Helevitz, Bauernfeind, Lentz and Heilman portray a much wider picture. And in total, 12 priests were charged with abuse in this one church alone. 12 priests in one church. Now, Zerhusen's parish was a fixture in a neighbourhood experiencing white flight, as they called it, white people leaving, and it rapidly becoming a majority black neighbourhood. And Zerhusen welcomed his church's racial integration and implemented programs for struggling families, including Richardson's. But black survivors like Richardson have been nearly invisible in the Catholic Church sexual abuse crisis, even in Baltimore, which is home to an historic black Catholic community in the nation's oldest archdiocese. But cases of clergy abuse among African Americans were underreported, according to the experts, and the US Catholic Church generally does not publicly track the race or ethnicity of victims. And without that data, the full scope of the abuse and its effects is unknown. Now, I wonder why that is. Now, persons of colour have suffered a long legacy of neglect and marginalisation in the Catholic Church, said the Reverend Brian Massingale, who is a black Catholic priest and Fordham University professor whose research has focused on these issues. And he said, "We need to correct the idea that all or most of the victims of this abuse have been white and male," he said. "No, we don't. We need to focus on those who were abused regardless of colour, under the banner of all children matter. It's not a racial issue." Now, earlier this year, the Maryland Attorney General's office released a scathing report on child sex abuse within the Baltimore Church or Archdiocese. And the report documents more than 600 abuse cases, but leaves out any context about race. There are clues, however, in the name of the priests and also the churches listed. But out of 27 parishes in the Archdiocese that have significant black populations, at least 70% previously had priests on staff who were accused of sexual abuse. 70% of the priests. Just how is that allowed to unfold? Do they have a permanent day of atonement for priests as well? But as you will see, there's a lot more involved in this. Now, for parishes that experience demographic shifts, these abusers were in residence in the years after black membership increased and white membership declined. In 2013, Zerhusen faced accusations from another former parishioner, the grandson of a woman who had worked at St. Ambrose. Now, the Archdiocese settled with the victim for $32,500 and added Zerhusen to their list of credibly accused priests. Accused. No, guilty. Now, Christian Kenzerski, an Archdiocese spokesperson, said he was just learning of Richardson's allegation about Zerhusen, who died in 2003. But the last time Zerhusen abused him, Richardson jumped out of a stained glass window to escape him, and he still bears scars that he attributes to that fall. But the emotional scars have never healed. And until recently, he had never told his family about the assaults. And Richardson says, as black men, we have a reputation we have to carry with us, a facade. And something like this is one of the worst things, to say you've been raped or touched by another man. And that applies to all men now. As men are told to suck it up and tough things out while suffering emotionally inside, often leading to addictions and, or worse, suicide. Now, after the Attorney General's report, Maryland lawmakers voted to repeal the statute of limitations for child victims to sue, and at age 58, Richardson retained a lawyer and decided to go public. Now, Ray Kelly, the chair of the Pastoral Council at St. Peter Claver, which is a black Baltimore parish, said the Archdiocese has failed to address racial disparities. No, they failed to address abuse. One black child is equal to one white child, is equal to one yellow child, is equal to one brown child. It's child abuse. Now, the Americanized Catholic Church still sees the black population as a perpetual charity case, so to speak, he said. The predators are going to go where the prey is, and black communities relying on the church for support. The great question is, why are any communities relying on the church for support? Where is the evidence they do anything to support the people? In overview, what they are revealing is the church is like another parent for them. It is childlike thinking. But sadly, the abuse against the children also came from within Baltimore's black community as well. When he was ordained in 1974, Morris Blackwell was a celebrated rarity, a homegrown black priest. But since then, he has been accused of sexually abusing at least 10 boys under 18, most at majority black parishes. And Darrell Carter alleges he was one of Blackwell's victims. He's now 63, and he decided to sue under the new state law. But as a teen, Carter visited 2 of Blackwell's parishes looking for odd jobs. Instead, he was sexually abused for 4 years and paid him £25 or dollars, each time, paying to abuse him. And Carter said Blackwell brandished a gun and threatened to kill him if he told anyone. Now, Carter said he reported the abuse to the Archdiocese several years later, but nothing came of it. The Archdiocese said it received a report of Carter's abuse in 2019 and reported it to law enforcement. In 2002, another Blackwell's victims, Dante Stokes, was confronted and shot Blackwell after he refused to apologise. Now, the shooting became a defining event in Baltimore's mishandling of clergy sex abuse claims, just as the scope of the crisis was breaking open in Boston. Now, Blackwell survived, the priest, and Stokes was later acquitted of attempted murder, but he did serve 18 months of home detention for gun charges. And Stokes had reported the abuse nearly a decade before the shooting, but the police never filed any charges. All of which means the police are protecting the church pedophiles. Now, although the Archdiocese found his claims credible, its leaders returned Blackwell to the ministry. But Blackwell was finally removed in 1998 after another victim came forward. But it was only after the 2002 shooting that Blackwell was formally expelled from the priesthood and also criminally charged. Now, despite being convicted of 3 counts of child sexual abuse, he was granted a new trial because of the improper testimony about possible other victims. And prosecutors ultimately then declined to retry him. So now we have the legalese people protecting pedophiles. In 1990, not long before Blackwell was first publicly accused, Gloria Webster's daughter became suicidal and admitted she had been sexually abused by her youth pastor, the Reverend Richard Deacon, starting when she was just 13 years of age. Now, Webster said, "I felt like I was suing God," after she pursued criminal and civil charges against Deacon. But these people are not gods or their messengers, and it's high time society saw through that illusion. But she went on and says, "All my friends turned against me." So now we have the public protecting the pedophiles. Seeing a pattern now? Now, Deacon pleaded guilty to second-degree rape and child sexual abuse, and yet received no jail time with a suspended sentence and probation. He later became a social worker at the Department of Veteran Affairs in Pennsylvania. So now we have government departments harbouring pedophiles. It's not a good look, is it? In 1993, the Websters settled out of court for $2.7 million, a staggering sum for the Archdiocese, where most settlements fall under 100,000. But survivors coming forward now will likely receive smaller settlements since the Archdiocese declared bankruptcy. But for his part, Richardson recently found solace in telling his daughter about the abuse for the first time and said, "A great weight has been lifted off my shoulders," he said. a very sad story. But the number of groups of people covering this up should alarm everyone.